It's Halloween, and I'm dressed up as some idiot who spent fab budget on Dayron Sharp. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. All right, so this is the first waiver wire show of the season. We'll do 2 of these per week, and the format will adjust just based on feedback and the way that I think things are going. I don't like to keep things exactly the same year on year, always trying to improve and change and make things more usable for you guys. But yeah, always going to be open. And I know that people are going to be like, just make it the same as last year, because everyone has this gigantic nostalgia bias that always wants something the same. And I do get that, but I'm just trying to make things better and more streamlined and more useful. We'll see how it goes. And things will constantly change and constantly evolve. What we are looking at here is the fantasy basketball waiver wire. It's always a tricky thing because of the many different league sizes and league formats to talk about with players in these so-called expert advanced formats. And, all these guys are taken in my league. And then you have the leagues where, there's 7 top 80 players still on the waiver wire. It is a tough task to try and go through it, but I'm going to try and go through and cover as much stuff as possible here. If you've got any questions about specific players, tweet them at me. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Drop them in the comments below, and if I don't get to them, there'll be other people who will respond to your comments there. And if you are watching the live show, of course, you drop it in the chat over there as well. So let's talk waiver wire. Might as well. That's where we're at. So we're looking at players that might be addable, players that might be droppable, some interesting trends, all that sort of stuff. Let's have a look. Maybe not. maybe let's try again and hit the button. That's a better button to hit. So what I'm going to start these shows with at the moment is a section I'm going to call must roster, which is a term that gets thrown around all the time, and which many of you absolutely hilarious YouTube commenters will drop into the comments below, because I say must roster instead of must roster. Like, we don't need to extend it out to last 5 weeks, that word. Just must roster. That's all you need, yeah? These are players who I project to be top 100 players. Therefore, to me, they are rosterable in any format. Any format. Top 100 players, rest of season, who are available in over 20% of leagues. Now, I refuse to believe at this portion of the season there are 20% of leagues that are dead. This number will change as we go further into the season, as more leagues do become less active. But at the moment, these guys are all absolute must-roster players. Zach Collins sits at 77%. Right? I look at that and go, maybe there are 23% of leagues that are inactive, because what are we doing? This is a must-roster player. What about Dan Gafford at 77%? I know. You'll say, Josh, his first game was bad. Josh, he's already on the injury report. I know all of those things. His second game was fine. He played 28 minutes. He did come back after the ankle injury. He is questionable, and I don't see there any long-term situation there, but it's annoying. Still, must roster. Asar Thompson. He sits at 70% rostered on Yahoo. I understand that there is bad shooting from Asar. It may not improve significantly through the season, but probably more on the must for categories versus points. I still think these are all points league guys too. Thompson needs to be rostered everywhere. His role isn't going anywhere. He's an elite rebounder. Somehow, he's like an unbelievable rebounder while he's playing next to Stewart and Duran, by the way. He is also a big steals and can, well, he hasn't even got big steals yet. He will get good steals. He's an unbelievable blocks guy, assists, and I think he's going to score okay. He is, to me, very clearly must roster. Jalen Johnson, this one's pretty crazy. He's at 44%. Now, we'll get more of an idea of him today in game 3, but they've played him big minutes in the first 2 games. They've closed with him. He plays over Sadiq Bey at times. He doesn't play much at center, but he is truly breaking out, and 44% is a laughable number. That needs to be way higher. The cashier, Xavier T. Illman. He's at 68%. Now, there have been multiple people. Usually, if I get one person saying something, I will tend to brush it off unless it's something outrageous that I do need to address. Like, last week, I wasn't going to address it, and I haven't, but I will now, when someone said to me after game 1, hey, do I drop Chet Holmgren? I thought, that's bloody ridiculous. And then 2 people said it to me. Okay, and then 3 people said it to me. I didn't bring it up. I should have. Clearly insane. Right? Clearly. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but what I was there, multiple people here with Tillman have said, man, do I just drop Tillman now because they signed Bismack Biyombo? No, you don't. Is Tillman a game-changing center for the Grizzlies? No, he isn't. Is Biyombo quite a good defensive rim protector? Yes, he is. Part of the reason they signed Biyombo is that they didn't have a backup center. Aldama is hurt, who's also not a center. They don't like playing Jaren Jackson at center. And Kenny Lofton, as some people may call him, Snack Randolph, he is not good enough to do it. So they needed a backup. So while this might mean that instead of 34 minutes, Tillman plays 30 or 28, like last game wasn't great for Tillman, but having another option there is important. I don't know this for sure, but I have seen 33-year-old Bismack Biyombo play, and he is solid enough as a backup, a pretty good rim protector, but I don't think they're going to come in with a guy who has not been with their team versus Tillman, who was a playoff starter for them, and say, all right, Xavier, you've actually played really well, but Bismack Biyombo's got this now. That seems to be a stretch in credulity to think that would happen. Anyway, Tillman's must roster. Biyombo is not. We will reassess as things go on. That's what we do. We take in more data points. And the last one there, who's been a little bit lackluster to start things, Wendell Carter Jr. I would not drop him. If he was dropped, I would add him. Again, he leans a little bit more categories than points leagues. But the Magic have had some very interesting rotations with some blowout situations with him and even a Markelle Fultz who's had... people have had some concerns about Fultz heading through the first couple of games. But those 6 names there all stand out to me as top 100 rest of season players who are available in over 20% of leagues. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. But not only is it the largest, it's the most exciting and it's the easiest to use. You don't have to sit there with spreadsheets and formulas and calculators and hours of your day trying to figure out how to get the lineup. They just put a player projection up and you just say, well, he's either going to be more than that or less than that. That's it. So easy. You can do this so fast. You do up to 6 of them, and you can actually win 25 times your money back. You can do this in under 60 seconds. There's an enormous selection of players and stat types on PrizePicks, and that makes it the #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've also got their reboot policy, so entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for NFL games and top 25 college football matchups. If they exit in the first half and don't return in the second, the player is rebooted. Rebooted, yeah. All right. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. The code is LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So let us crack in. If we're going to look at players who are must roster, let's look at players who I think are maybe droppable. And what sort of cutoff did I use for this? This is players who I project to be outside the top 150 who are rostered in over 60% of leagues. Just guys, now when I say droppable, this does not mean must drop. It doesn't mean you go, man, I've got this guy on my roster, he's got to go. This is more catered towards 12-team formats, but I don't think that Bobby Portis remains a must. We've seen, maybe this will change. But he played exclusively as Brook Lopez's backup in game 1. And this was part of my concern with Lopez, is he needs someone to get hurt to boost in value. And he doesn't have free reign at all backup power forward and backup center minutes because Jay Crowder gets them. Right? So it's going to change when guys rest. Like today, Middleton is out for the Bucks, so Crowder probably plays more at small forward. And that bumps Portis a little bit. I'm not saying that he's a must-drop player. I'm just saying that when you're looking to add some of the names we're going to talk about later, I wouldn't be prioritizing holding on to Bob Portis. Kevon Looney's at 63% rostered. Draymond is back today. There is zero reason in a points league and zero reason in a category league, I don't think, to have Kevon Looney rostered in a 12-team format. Is he streamable on days? Absolutely. Do you need to hang on to him? No chance in hell. Harrison Barnes. Yeah, Barnesy. 64% rostered. I know he had a very good game 1. Guess what happened in game 2? He took 5 shots and still hit 80% of them. He is not a guy that you need to hold on to. He is totally fine to have when you get deeper. He's totally fine to stream in on low volume days when the Kings play. But by no means do you look at your roster and go, well, can't add the hot free agent because I've got Harrison Barnes. Oh, well, I guess stuff just happens. No, it doesn't just happen. That's a mistake, I think. And the other one there is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's 68% rostered. Now, I've given him a little bit of a blue tint there on the YouTube graphics because I think for category leagues, he wouldn't move into that droppable territory. I'm not fully in on KCP for category leagues, but he's put in huge steal numbers. His shooting is going to wax and wane. Look at his splits last year. They're insane. I think he shot 49% for 3 months and then 32% for 3 months, and that dropped his production. At the moment, he's getting by on big steal numbers, which is really valuable, of course, but it doesn't always stick that way. Beside the point. For points leagues, if you've got KCP and that 68% rostered would suggest that a lot of people in 12-team points leagues do have him, I don't think that that's necessary. He's not a really high-level points league player. And in points leagues in particular, streaming through an open roster spot is just getting bulk volume in. That is points leagues. Get bulk volume in. If I can get 6 games out of one roster spot versus 3 games of KCP, I take it every day of the week. I'm always going to be able to find a 20, 25-point player on the waiver wire for a single day. It's going to happen. So there is no reason in a points league. Category league, get it. Like, you could consider him droppable, but I probably wouldn't, even though I'm not fully in on him. In a points league, yeah, I don't think there's any real reason to be holding on to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So what are we going to look at now? Let's look at some waiver wire trends over the last 48 hours. This is using our advanced roster metric over on Basketball Monster, which takes into consideration leagues that are, I don't want to say more serious, but it's all 12-team leagues with cash on the line, taking away some public free leagues that people don't care about. So that's how we're getting these numbers. Lou Dort has been added in 64% of leagues, and I know, again, there's a couple of things with this. It is A, one of the biggest examples of chasing, but B, also it's a stream for Sunday. Lou Dort was great. I'm going to talk about him a little bit more later on. He was great in game 2. He wasn't in game 1. I don't think that he's a must-roster player. I'm hoping that this is just an ad for Sunday. DeAndre Hunter up 38%. He was also really good. See the correlation? Dort, Hunter, shot well, big scoring. Let's add them. It's unlikely they do it. It's unlikely that continues. Kelly Oubre up 35%. Now, I'm, again, not a full believer in Kelly Oubre, and I think if and when James Harden returns, he's going to struggle to do things because he needs a lot of minutes and a lot of shots, and we saw the percentage drop off from game 1 to game 2. Part of the reason, and I added Kelly Oubre over an industry pickup because of the weekend back-to-back. And I don't know whether I'll hold him long-term, but I did add him because I got the 2 games out of him. He's up 35%, so there's totally reasonable expectations, but I think what he did in game 2 is a more representative ideal versus the 80% shooting or whatever it was from game 1. Gordon Hayward up 27%, most added. Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. There's no, I don't see why you would leave Hayward at the moment on the waiver wire. He's playing well. He's playing good minutes. He's not hurt. He is a 12-team league player. So he should be rostered in more leagues. That makes sense. Cole Anthony up 23%. Part of that is he's playing well. Part of that, I would hope, is to do with the Magic's very strong quality game schedule next week. Cole Anthony is someone I can 100% get behind. Now, he is going to have some bad games. I think he's also a candidate to be traded at some point this season, and I would guess it would be into a starting role somewhere, which would further boost his value. But with A, how he's playing, B, with a strong schedule the Magic have next week, he is a very good ad. And the same goes with Dracaris Levert, who's up 23%. He was my stream of the day for yesterday. I didn't get to do the recap on that because I didn't do a recap show, but that one, finally a stream of the day hits for me, and it hits massive with Levert, and I don't get to talk about it on the bloody show. I'm talking about it now. But the Cavs have a very strong schedule next week as well. In terms of quality games, we have doubt still around Allen, Mitchell, and Garland. The latter 2 of those with hamstring problems, and Allen with the bone bruise. Levert is going to be up and down with shooting. We know this. But the great schedule, the uncertainty around 3 key starters means that he is a guy that you add for the short term and see where you go with it. the most dropped players over the last 48 hours. Paul Reed down 34%. We were swindled, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray by Nicholas Nurse. And I've talked about my issues with listening to coaches plenty of times. I'll say it quickly again. When a coach says something, you have to listen. Some of it is bullshit, some of it is not. Right? When you hear a coach say something and then if you ignore it as bullshit and then it comes true, well, you're stupid because you were told it. If a coach says something and you believe it and then it's completely untrue, well, you're an idiot for believing them. It's a very hard line to go through, right? So we saw the situation. We go, well, they don't have really a strong backup power forward. They lost George Niang. PJ Tucker's a million years old. He's been talked about in Harden trades as well. And Nick Nurse is out here telling us that Paul Reed's definitely going to play with Joel Embiid. You go, okay, let's take a crack at it, yeah? And he's played 0 minutes with him. Now, Reed should be dropped, but there is a chance that Joel Embiid doesn't play on Sunday. Now, you're not probably going to be able to action this before that because I'm talking now, but maybe we see a big Paul Reed game on Sunday if Embiid does in fact sit. I don't know that he will. But otherwise, the fact that he's not playing next to Embiid, we move on. Josh the Hitman Hart. I talked all off-season about the Knicks guard situation and bench rotation is hard. I was more focused on how we work with Quickly. Now, he's had one good game and the other two have been a little iffy in terms of Quickly's minutes. But Hart's have been downright disappointing. There are not enough minutes to go around. This is where the 240 game comes in unbelievably clutch. It's just not enough minutes. So Josh Hart needs 30, 31 to get there. He's not touching it. Drop him. Obert Toppin down 23%. Yep, we always like, hey, this guy's got a little bit of upside, points, rebounds, field goals, maybe hit some threes with some free throw percentage, starter, looks pretty good. Unfortunately, he's being outplayed by a 6'5" shooting guard in Aaron Nesmith, and it turns out that maybe the fact that Obi Toppin was traded for second-round picks and was buried on the bench in New York as a terrible lottery pick was because he wasn't good and not because of the Knicks. Who would have thought? And again, he's one of those players that, not quite as bad as Jalen Smith, that you go, well, the opportunity is there, but I don't think he's very good. And I think he's going to lose this spot at some point. Now, I thought he would lose it to Jarris Walker, but I think he's losing minutes to Aaron Nesmith. That's a long way of saying, yeah, go and drop Obi Toppin. Kevin Huerter down 20%. Well, if you're me, you never would have picked him up anyway in a standard format. But it's very, very clear that A, he's not good enough to hold on to, and B, he's losing minutes to Chris Duarte. So yeah, easy drop. Amen Thompson's down 18%. I still fully believe in Amen, but he played like 13 minutes last game. And the path for him to get playing time is not super clear. Move on. And Pat Williams down 16%. He's a starter. He's year 4. He plays a key position in the NBA. He's got some defensive upside. We take a last round flyer on that. He's putrid. Like, he is not good. And he is getting benched so that they can play Torrey Craig and Alex Caruso at power forward. He just is... That whole team is... They stink. They're disgusting. And that whole franchise is terrible. The players aren't stinky one-on-one. It's the way that the roster is constructed, as I've said a million times about the Bulls. So Pat Williams is a very clear drop. He just is not good as a starter-level player, and I'm not sure he ever gets there, and I don't even know if he's going to play starter-caliber minutes as we move forward in the season. So yeah, he is an easy drop at this point. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, well, you score early, actually, this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's it. $150 if your team wins. You just place a moneyline bet, $5. Pick a favorite if you want. A raging hot favorite. Pick them, you win it, you get $150 in bonus bets. And then with those bonus bets, you can go and use bets on spreads and totals and player props and futures. It's all there for whatever sport you're looking for. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let's look at some more waiver wire stuff. Let's look at some hot players. So we have just begun the NBA season, of course, but these are all players who are currently top 50 players for the year who are worth mentioning. Cam Thomas is currently the 17th ranked player. He's rostered in 71% of leagues. I do have doubts still on Thomas about, well, not doubts. I don't doubt this part at all. He will not shoot the percentage that he's shooting. That, you can write it in pen. It is never happening. He will not continue to do this. The other part is what his role is. There are some people think, well, he's got to start. Yeah, he might lead the league in scoring this season. And to that, I go, calm down. All right, I'm not sure that that's going to be accurate. But does he start? And if he does, is it over Spencer Dinwiddie? Like, who does he start over? Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie? Is his style of play, have the Nets, and I know this as fact, that the Nets coaching staff and front office are very frustrated or have been in the past with Thomas's style of play, hence why he would not get playing time. Has it changed enough, or have the shots just gone in and you can't justify not playing him? I'll let you be the decision maker there. You can't leave Thomas on the waiver wire very clearly. You probably can't sell him high for a top 30 player either. But I have heard outlandish comments. Thomas is a better player than Mikal Bridges. He should be their number one guy. Let's go. All right, so I'm going to find that bloke in my league, and then I'm going to try and trade Cam Thomas to him, if somehow he doesn't already have him. Right? But that's going to be for a small percentage of people. But I've heard it multiple times. Anyway, Thomas is rolling. He won't continue to shoot this well. He's going to get a lot of shots, but it's going to come down to, is he going to play 20 minutes or 27 minutes? 20 minutes is nowhere near enough. 27 is. Max Strus, the 27th ranked player, the winter soldier, 64% rostered. That needs to be way higher. Now, I do not believe in Max Strus at this level at all. Not at all. I don't think that Max Strus is a double-digit rebound sort of player. I don't think he's out here dishing 6 assists per game. He's also going to be very up and down with his shooting, but he is taking advantage of a couple of things. Jarrett Allen being out, and then Garland being out, and then Mitchell being out. All those things help him. He's playing, I think, the most minutes of anybody in the NBA, outside of maybe Tyrese Maxey. So that's obviously helping him as well. JB Bickerstaff, again, under the radar, runs a Nick Nurse rotation a lot of the time. But that's with 3 guys out. So when Allen, Garland, Mitchell all play, will Strus get 39 a night? Will he get rebounds? Will he get assists? Will he get that many shots? Will they go in? The answer to all those questions as a general totality is no. So for now, we look at Strus. We'd love to sell off on him. We add him, but my confidence in that sticking is low. Kelly Oubre's 33rd. After his 2 games, he's at 59% rostered. He should be higher than that, but again, I don't really see all that sticking. There's a lot of situational stuff going on there. KCP's 36th. He's at 68%. I already spent a lot of time talking about KCP earlier. Gordon Hayward at 53%. He's 42nd. Then Lou Dort is 44th at 38%. Hayward, yes, I would add. Dort, no. Oubre, Strus, and Thomas, I would, with understand that Thomas, Strus, Oubre are all going to drop off, and I think drop off pretty significantly. So what else have we got to talk about? Some injury replacement guys. Now, these aren't the most exciting names, pretty clearly, but with some injuries around the league, they are guys that are popping up and having some short-term value. In Phoenix, they've got 4 quality games next week. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, we don't know their status. Jordan Goodwin might be useful, but honestly, if Beal and Booker both play, Goodwin literally might play 0 minutes a night. And I say that because it'd be Booker, Beal, Gordon, Grayson Allen. Does he play a single minute ahead of any of those guys? Probably not, right? But Gordon will play. He had 2 stinkers, and then he had a big game in the next one. So while those guys are out, we know that they are going to give big minutes to Eric Gordon. He is going to get lots of shot attempts. He will struggle at times, but there is still value in Eric Gordon. Isaac Okoro, if you didn't get Max Strus, Okoro is playing exceptionally well. And he needs probably only one of those 3 players to be out to be at least useful enough in 14-team leagues, or maybe even 12. After that, we can drop him back because he's not playing 30 a night. But there's a little boost in his value at the moment. In Detroit, Alec Burks is rolling. They need his shooting. He's coming off the bench. He's playing more than Jaden Ivey. I think he played more than Killian Hayes last game. And with Bogdanovic and Morris out, Burks is really getting the boost. And I actually don't hate him as a short-term 12-team ad. I added him in a league that's about a 14-team depth sort of league. Goes about 180 deep in that league. I added Burks in that one and actually started him yesterday. So I think that while those guys are out, Burks is having some value. The Moose, Mike Muscala. Now, I put this out there. I don't even know if Daniel Gafford's going to miss any time, but their centers at the moment have been Muscala and Gallinari. And while Gallinari's fine to play a backup small ball center role, I don't think they're going to roll out with Danilo as the starting center and play him 30 minutes a night. That seems tough to do. So I would expect that if Gafford misses, Muscala starts, Gallinari does get a boost. But if Moose plays 23 minutes, that's probably enough to have value. But he might not, because Gafford might not miss a game. That's just one to watch. I'm going to put Naz Reid on here, the Wizard of Noz, as the injury replacement as well. And I'm not sure that it's 100% accurate. Reid was fantastic last game. They basically played him, Cat, and Gobert all of the front court minutes. And this is something I talked about. I think it was in the 240 game episode for the Western Conference. But if they play all 96 minutes of the front court, Towns, Gobert, and Reid, That would mean that Kyle Anderson never plays the 4. It would mean Jaden McDaniels never plays the 4. And that just doesn't seem realistic. Unless you're going to play McDaniels 30 minutes at small forward and Kyle Anderson only gets 18 minutes a night, that's really hard for me to see. But McDaniels is out. So Anderson gets his 30 minutes or so at small forward. They're not going to play Minot or Miller. So Reed's minutes are up. And they do love Niles Reed. I just find it hard to think he plays 28 a night when Jaden is back, because it would mean literally 0 minutes for Anderson and McDaniels at the 4, meaning that Kyle Anderson plays fewer than 20 minutes a night, which just doesn't seem like it's possible, but we don't care. And then the other one I've got as an injury replacement there is Christian Wood. That's because Jared Vanderbilt is out. Now, when Vanderbilt comes back, they do really need Vanderbilt in that starting lineup, which would move Torian Prince to the bench, which would juggle around a lot of other rotational things. But Wood's got Wood's got some chance here to play 23, 24 minutes. We know there's going to be some stinkers. There's going to be some good games from him, and we've seen that through the games 1 and 2 of the season. So while Vanderbilt is out, he's got at least streaming appeal. If not, he's not must roster, but he's got some streaming appeal. And then I just want to go through some other names. Now, I did put this guy on the thumbnail because I think it's important, but maybe I should have structured the show better. maybe that's the takeaway here. Because I do think that Keyonte George needs to be added in every league. You know that I have been saying this, and you are going to say, Josh, stop slandering Taylor Horton-Tucker. I love my long arm boy. I'm not slandering him. What I am saying is that Horton-Tucker is not a starting caliber player, and that eventually, very quickly, Keyonte George is going to take over. And honestly, we saw it yesterday. Now, that does not mean that Keyonte George starts at point guard next game, but this whole charade of like, no, we've got to play Horton-Tucker and let's try Sexton. We've tried it. It doesn't work. And I'm not saying that George is going to be good because rookie point guards aren't good, but this Jazz team is actually terrible. Like, they are not good at all, and there's no point having Horton-Tucker out there. So I have grabbed George in every league I could. I've got him in 3 of my 7 leagues. I'm in 8 leagues, one of them is Dynasty. I've got George in 3 of my 7 leagues, and I'm going to hold him. I actually dropped him in industry pickup. Sorry, I added him in industry pickup today and dropped Horton-Tucker. I think it is coming very soon, this switch over. Because Horton-Tucker is not very good. He's not a starting caliber player, and he makes the whole offense junky. It's weird with him out there. It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying George is going to be good, but I know that there is absolutely needs to be 100% more investment in him from that franchise, which they do. They do love him. They just need to put him into that role. So to me, he is absolutely a must-roster player, Keyonte George. It might not pan out, but I don't think this is like waiting on the Jalen Williams of last season. Now, last season, I went probably a little bit early on Jalen Williams. As soon as he got his first start, I went, all right, add him, let's go. And then it took about a month after that for him to really break out. But you got to go early. You have, and again, we can take week 1 L's or week 2 L's. You've got to go early. I think this is, and it might not work out, but that's not the point. You got to add him. I'll put Miles Bridges on this list and I'll explain it here. Do I think that Miles Bridges should play in the NBA? No, but it doesn't matter what I think really. Because every day that we go further and we hear nothing from that spineless pissweak organization, the Charlotte Hornets, means that he's just going to play. They haven't put him on administrative leave. They haven't kept him away from the team while they investigate. He's there laughing it up and practicing. He's going to come back after his suspension and play. And every day that we push closer to that makes it more likely. Meaning that Miles Bridges, who's available in 50% of leagues, is going to come back. He's going to be useful. He's going to be a top 100 guy, I would guess, and he's going to be a waiver wire steal. Now, you might say, I don't want a bloke who throws billiard balls in his ex's car with his kids in it on my team. That's totally okay. But if you're someone who looks at it in a binary situation, these are just numbers, and these numbers help me win, then you've got to add him. Every day, I feel more and more confident that they will do nothing about further suspending him, which is weird and annoying, but it's what's going to happen. Tim Hardaway Jr., been really strong. Now, there's been every Mavs person I talked to in the preseason like, no, he's gone. Like, they don't want him around. They're going to trade him, and then there's the talk from Hardaway in the preseason. Well, Jason Kidd's actually never spoken to me about what my role is for the season. I go, Jesus Christ, what are they doing with this guy? And he comes out, plays 30 minutes a night and scores. Now, he's going to be up and down. He's going to have weeks where he shoots 10% from the field. But at the moment, they are leaning into him over Jaden Hardy. Again, who knows? No idea why. Why would you do it? No idea, but that's what they do. And you have to roll with it. Aaron Nesmith, I talked about him earlier. They love him as a power forward. They are playing well, and they're playing high-octane, high-pace offense. He's well ahead of Jarris Walker. I look, Neesmith was great last game. He shot unbelievably. I don't think that he's necessarily a 12-team must, but he's at least on our radar. I think I added him in a 14-team league, and I think that's about where I look at him. Bismack Biyombo, I'll bring the name up. If you're in a deeper league, 16 teams, I would add him. I'd consider it in 14, and then in 12s, he becomes a watch list streamer guy, because if they play him 25 a night, he might block 2 shots, and that's useful. I really don't think they do, though, and I think that in the end, he probably moves back to a 10-minute role when Aldama returns. But he might play 17 minutes or so straight off. So he's someone to watch. And the other name to bring up here is Bilal Koulibaly, who we saw start all preseason, put up big defensive numbers. We got to the regular season, and the worst team in the NBA said, nah, you'll play 12 minutes, my guy. Cool. Wes Unseld, bottom 3 coach in the NBA. So we dropped Koulibaly. Again, we can only base things off the information we get. Koulibaly starts as a rookie. They traded up for as a top 7 pick on a terrible team. Looks great. And you go, well, that should all add up to some okay value early on, yeah? But no. Now, I think he will get some value later on, but we move on from now because franchises are going to franchise, I guess. Yeah. And that is the first Waiver Wire show of the season. Drop your thoughts down below on players, on the format, on things you think that I missed, or segments you'd want different, or whatever. Drop it down below. Guys, follow this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. And on YouTube, thumb it up and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I said Stitcher again. See ya.